Hello Internet, I'm Jockey Fox and hello War of the Visions fans. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I woke up super early to pull an 140 King Ashen Mont, the new most powerful character in Global, and I'm going to show you a lot of footage of him beating a lot of the meta teams. Now, I want you to take this with a grain of salt, but a different grain of salt than usual, because this video is going to be different. I'm not testing him in Arena, so there's no arena bonus structure, anything like that, map bonuses, any of that stuff. Also, I'm picking a fairly simple map. It's not necessarily the very best for testing, but it seems to be the default for Arena, so it's the easiest thing to get into as it's what the map is always set for, at least for right now. So it creates both literally and figuratively a bit of an even playing field for our characters to compete on. But also, just because I enjoy this format more, it creates a challenge and another layer of depth to it for me. I'm going to be playing in manual while my opponents are going to be playing in auto. Now, I've set up these teams to work pretty well in auto and have a good buff structure on this map. So this isn't going to be easy for me. But if these teams, because I'm going to be testing several, and if Ashen Mont himself is a decent to good unit, I should probably be able to win all of these matches one way or another. Just because I'm putting myself at a pretty decent advantage by playing in manual. But this relies on me knowing my character's kits really well. I haven't played with Celes in a while. I've played with Oldoa quite a bit and a bit in manual, so I kind of get her. But Ashen Mont, obviously, this is my first morning, and I woke up after getting like 2 hours of sleep to play this stuff out, so I might be having a little bit of trouble. But if I can win basically all of these matches, then he's definitely a good boy in a lot of scenarios. If I absolutely fucking house my opponents in all of these, he's probably OP. And if I have kind of a close call with a team, this means it's probably gonna be able to beat my team in auto. It might be kind of difficult, but if all things were even, then that team could probably win because it put up a pretty decent shot. So all of that being explained, take a sigh of relief, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into the video. For my part, I'm going to be starting with a full night spread. So this is going to be using Chaos Siren for Earth and Water, but also it's going to be using night vision cards primarily, because those are going to affect each of these units. And in addition to that, all of my teams, to create a bit of added disadvantage, they're all set because I'm lazy to have 2 vision cards that do not apply to them whatsoever. Basically, 2 of my vision card slots are kind of useless because I'm not switching out my bonus cards for Arena. The other teams have much more well-rounded vision cards, and since this is primarily an Earth team and this is also a bait team that's meant to go up against Lightning, let's go ahead and try it against the most meta Lightning team I can get my hands on. Alright. So this map, at least for me, since I don't have units with high jump, is going to create a barrier between my teams. And this is going to mean that Bradley is going to have to 2-for-1 other units. Also, Celes is very vulnerable against this team. Alaya is going to be a real problem for her, so being able to actually effectively use her on this map is going to be important. I want to move people a little bit more to the middle with Bradley for this particular team to try to get them to bunch up so I can AoE and single target them to death with Mont. So I'm going to be moving both Bradley and my tank closer to the center of the map. This is one of those small strategical adjustments that you can make in manual that the auto player really isn't going to make. Also, the auto player will follow hate, so it can be distracted by tanks in a way that you as a player will not be for the most part. So I'm going to move Celes to the middle of the field. Hopefully this can pull people in because she does have that initial hate. I wanted to set up my AP restore early for Bradley, and since this is a primarily physical team, I'm moving in range of damage They're likely going to be able to hit something on their next turn. I'm going to go ahead and turn off AP Restore for them and also decrease their AP and their attacking power, as well as raising Bradley's critical evasion. This is the TMR Blade Drum of the heads. And this is a really, really important buff for my opponents to use, and we will see some teams that use this against us and how it can really change the game in terms of what my characters are able to do, because this team in particular is reliant on the AP auto restore within its kit. As you can see, I already have 2 units with AP auto restore up. Having a little trouble finding something in range for Celes to do, and unfortunately this is going to put her in Celes range, but we've got to start doing stuff here. We're already at a pretty thick disadvantage in terms of HP, but Bradley is here and in range to go ahead and fix that problem and remove lightning from play. Also doing pretty heavy damage to Astrius as well. All of his defenses aren't really holding up very well against Bradley at the moment. Mont is now in range for his LB, but because of poor range height issues and the fact that the middle of this map, where they're engaging with each other, is its most uneven point, he's unable to hit Alaya and can only take out Astrius, which is fine. We are now 3v1ing this team, and we should be able to do that pretty effectively. Although, yep, there goes Celes. At least they got that. I told you Alaya was going to be able to do that, and now we may actually have a chance at closing this out. Don't have the range to hit with LB, so we're going to use Calculated Rend, get some CTF. This is also almost going to make Bradley fast enough to jump in before Alaya's next turn, but because of that follow-up damage, we're going to be able to take out Courage for Alaya, as well as being able to rend all of her HP in a single strike. So Ashen definitely wins that one pretty handily. And even though I think he's a powerful character, I think we kind of fetishize to a point like units that have an edge. And it's just an edge. You need a team of 3, you need a good strategy, you need a lot of things to make this work. And just having an edge isn't enough to ensure that you win all of the battles. There's a lot of things that have to come together to do that. Much like, say, in Magic the Gathering, having the best cards can certainly help you win, but having 4 of the best card in a deck that doesn't call for it is actually unhelpful. So here we are again. Mont is going to buddy buff Celes. Celes has selfish buffs, much like the next tank I'm going to be showing you with this team, Oldoa. So similar pattern here for her. Alternately, I could switch these to an initial placement. I do want Celes at the front of the party so that she can pick up a little bit more initial hate. So I technically want her in the first slot, but I don't have to have her in the far left of the field. I could put her in the middle to initial placement. But largely I'm not using initial placement at all for this, just to help keep things a little bit more fair. Even though in the type of format where you could play this manually, you would definitely have full control of it. So this light team is getting set up, and as we all know, Helena the Black Rose is the real monster here. And she's going to be especially troublesome for King Mont. She is also probably going to be trouble for the rest of my party as well. Celes cannot deal with her limit burst, so we are going to have to tank that regardless. And if I get Runic up, it's probably going to ensure that she uses the limit burst. I'm actually a little bit more confident that Mont can survive it, so I'm going to be moving Celes high so that hopefully she doesn't have to deal with that. Also in this game, I'm remembering that Poise will give me Courage, so I probably want Courage here. Also, I'm not facing 3 physical units, so the ability to remove their AP and to remove their attack power, none of these units are using like Bell's effects. You know, the Win Veritas TMR doesn't do anything here, so I'd rather have Courage for him. Also getting Courage up for Mont, just in case this LV hits a little bit harder than I'm expecting it to, but here it comes, and because of the height differences between my units, this should be locking her into hitting only one of them. Pretty decent damage there, and pretty decent heal. We've also got Reflect, which is gonna cause a lot of problems for most of Celeste's kit. There is an exemption here, or an exception, and that's going to be your LB, but we're not in range to cast that, so it looks like we're getting our second buff in. This is going to be runic, and this is going to give us the ability to basically reflect the rest of her kit. So as long as she's using AoE skills, as long as she's targeting Celeste, we're going to be able to turn those into positive AP for Celeste. So there's AP regeneration now effectively on this entire team in different sorts of ways. Bradley again is taking a lot of damage, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to AoE these two characters together. He has to pick one or the other, and this is actually kind of a difficult choice. Sylvie is going to heal whoever I deal damage to because I can't take people out. This may not be enough for Bradley to win, and while it will keep at least Sylvie off his back, he still does have to contend with the fact that he's at half HP, doesn't have a healer or support around to help him, and is facing off against Ruinstern, who doesn't really have heals to distract him. Also, from that top panel, I can't use my LB, but moving down a little bit, I'm able to use it again. This is going to break her unit attack resistance, and it is also going to give me a follow-up attack in addition to doing some other things and giving me haste. Didn't do a ton of damage here even with the follow-up attack, but it's a little bit more, I think, relative to what she did to me with her LB, so pretty good trade there. Also trading her AoE attack for Celeste's AP. We're getting the really big heal here if this hits both of them, which I doubt that it can, but it's possible. Yep, no, there it is. It's going to put a really nice barrier on them, which is going to be trouble for me. I still have a lot of my HP, but they've healed pretty well as well, so I've got some issues here potentially. Moving there doesn't allow me to use my LB. I think I can use it for my home spot, yeah. So I can move after casting this LB. This is very similar to Oldoa's LB as well. It doesn't have the dispel on its damage, but it does a lot of the same things for Celeste herself. So this is another way that this team and the Oldoa variant as well are actually quite similar. Just different element of tank, and both of these elements, water and ice, are complementary to Earth in different ways for different strategies. So he's definitely relevant with these two tanks, and I think maybe if Knight does really well, that Celeste could even be a particularly relevant partner with him. Even though it, to my knowledge, never really appeared that much on JP, and she is a little bit behind these first couple of matches, show me that there is at least some potential. Now, this is the cheaper skill for me to cast, but arguably I probably should have gone for the LB to increase my slash attack resistance penetration so that I could do more damage with subsequent attacks and maybe be able to take somebody out. But I'm kind of stuck in a damage Sylvie heals herself, damage Sylvie heals herself. So I'm negating Sylvie and Sylvie's negating Bradley in the same way that Celeste is one-sidedly canceling out Helena's appearance on the field. So it shouldn't take me much of anything special to take her out, but I should be able to heal myself or something. Well, at least I can get some CT while I take her down. So CT up, a little bit of health, and we've got that character down. Face the characters that are a threat, so you'll take less damage from them. And Sylvie is in that cure spiral that I was talking about. So I can keep focusing Bradley on her. I guess that's maybe the best thing to do. I could have gone for Stern because, Sylvie alone is basically nothing, but also I can keep her kind of spiraling here and 2v1 Stern, and I feel really comfortable in doing that. I don't even think he necessarily has good chances on Celes at this point, but we'll see. And as you can see, even though he's not the most evasive unit, she only has about a 64% chance to hit him because she is just terribly inaccurate for the most part. Definitely not good into an evasion matchup. And unlike Oldoa, who is also similarly blind, does not have a guaranteed hit to kind of compensate. So let's look at some of these 2 hits, or 2 target skills. Phantom Blade or Phantom Reaver, whatever that was, reduces healing power. So for units that are going to heal a lot, this can be a really important way to deal with them individually or even 2 at a time. Then I think it's like Twofold Reaver, the job level 25, that's the one that has the chance to inflict silence. It gets boosted while he has AP auto restore in effect. So that's really good for dealing with mages specifically, so we can deal with mages and healers. And then, the other one's his LB, and in addition to breaking unit attack resistance, which one of those other 2 does as well, he's also getting that cool follow-up attack, and that should still be active for him. So if Sylvie gets re-raised, he should be able to hit her. No, it looks like we're a turn off of that. And also she didn't, but it should have hit Stern for sure. But look, we're in a really great place here. Even not landing sleep, we've really got this Stern on the ropes. But with the CT up upon re-raise, he's going to be back in this for at least one more shot. He just doesn't have a good shot at taking anybody out except for Celes, and that's not going to be enough for him. Again, Celes being an older unit here, she is kind of proving to be a weak link and potentially more KOable. But we're going to switch over into the Oldoa party in a little bit, and you'll get an opportunity to see how much more durable she can be. You know, part of this narrow or single-mindedness on who is the absolute best unit or who they counter, one counter does not unplayable make necessarily. I know Jueme is and has been up until this point the biggest part of the meta, and that can be really tough for Oldoa, but Oldoa is particularly well suited to deal with Ashen, Mont, and also other characters, and works really well with Ashen, Mont besides. And you're going to see she really helps me with certain strategies that help me to counter some of these other teams that are very much within the meta. So very cool character still. So let's check out the Ashen, Oldoa, and Mont team. And as you can see here, again, I'm using the arena bonus cards, which are basically doing nothing for my team or for Oldoa, so this is a bit of a handicap for me that my opponent won't have. Although, again, I'm doing this in manual, so it should be a little bit easier for me. But that being said, when it looks really easy, you can tell that I have a good matchup there. I'm pretty sure that Runic would have helped a lot in the Helena matchup, and that would have worked out similarly in auto, but I can't guarantee you that Helena wouldn't have, or Mont wouldn't have run out from under the Runic barrier or something and could have gotten sniped for sure. So I don't think that would have gone nearly as cleanly from the beginning in that way that it did. So let's test it out again with Oldoa. We have no Runic this time, so we can't use that same cheese strategy. We're going to have to brute force this. Once again, Helena is probably the most dangerous thing on the opposing team, so she's the unit we need to neutralize the most. Looking through some of Oldoa's buffs, she definitely has kind of a Swiss Army knife worth of 2 or 3 things in her kit. I'm using her main sub-job here because it's really going to help me in wind matchups. It might be one of the things that helps me overcome that initial weakness. I don't trust her AI usually to use elemental buffs. I don't usually trust the AI to use elemental buffs because they don't know to not use them when they're not relevant, and not in every matchup will they be relevant. But this adds some options to my toolkit here that I can use intelligently, and the AI can't, that'll give me an advantage in future matches, hopefully. Because I do plan to test this against both full wind and pierce type teams, and other kind of strategies like that might give it a lot more trouble. And although as a wind tank, as an ice tank, can only really do so much to fix that weakness, because she's not really going to be able to take anybody out, even if she does tank relatively well. It's going to be all about the strategies that she adds to my arsenal that enable me to take over the fight and take over the tempo of the fight. This in particular is going to allow Mont to follow up with an attack while he's around her that will be able to remove re-raise from Helena. So in this case, we're trying to take Helena out faster since we don't have Runic to be able to ignore her skills for 2 turns, which is enough to basically invalidate her. I also have the possibility, and this would work particularly well with Sylvie too, of using the job level 25 skill to be able to potentially silence both of the mages on this team. That would be super bad for them. It would leave them essentially with only their LBs to come at me with for the most part. Maybe some of their sub-job skills could work too, but again, for the most part, just those LBs. And if they've already blown those off, well, then they're just going to be whacking me with their rods or their swords or whatever. I mean, I guess being whacked with a sword is kind of intimidating, but... we've taken some damage here, but automatic healing has recovered us fully at this point. Meanwhile, we're healing a lot more manually here with Sylvie, and Sylvie's definitely keeping Knight of Ruinstern in the game. And as you can see, I'm in a similar place here, but I'm going to try to learn from my previous mistakes. And I'm going to look at skills that maybe give me a better into Ruinstern, like maybe getting my next turn a little bit faster and trying to double up on him or chain with someone. So being able to hit both of them with Mont would be particularly good. I wonder why I can't. Maybe it's a range height issue or something, or range issue. For sure, almost for sure. So let's instead just settle for what we can get and try to attack Helena. Oh, so many good skills in here. Okay, this is the one that inflicts silence, so let's go with that. We'll see if we can neutralize her that way. Nope, no silence inflicted, and even with the follow-up skill, she's still alive. And I believe with 69 AP, if I saw that correctly, which is nice. Let's see, I mean, Oldoa could definitely take her out at this point. Oh, although she can't hit her because of the range height difference. Let's see if we can fix that. Nope, now we're only hitting her. But once again, like Celes, no real accuracy here. Yep, 69. Oh my gosh, 69. 69 HP left on her, and her re-raise removed. She is in a very delicate situation. Having to sidestep people's attacks and stuff, but she's also stepped right into good AoE range for Bradley. So let's go ahead and make that precarious situation worse. Showing up a little bit too late to do exactly what would have really turned this game around. And again, this could be a margin to where, like, if Sylvie had been a little bit faster in this composition or something, or showed up a little bit sooner, that could have been prevented. But with Helena down, we've got problems. And we're just getting a lot of effects onto stuff. We got the silence onto Stern, but not onto Sylvie. We're trying to silence that because that's really going to shut down their chances of recovery. But I'm going to go ahead and take out that DPS and try to get my next turn as much faster as possible, which is probably going to entail remaining in my spot so I don't use some of my CT to move. And that's going to help me get that next turn faster, although not before Sylvie. That being said, I definitely have more units to deal with Sylvie that are going to be striking before her, so that gets me the win there. By the way, thank you all for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if this is live. Say something in the chat. If this is not, or if you just want to, leave a comment. Also, check out the link in the description for more Jackie Fox stuff all over the web, including books. Please buy my books. That would be awesome. Alright, so here we are. And now we're going to try a more meta Jueme. It's going to be Elda Ferret Jueme. So this is going to be the very consistent high healing power, high healing while attacking power. And definitely the ability to target multiple units either through AoE or single target. So lots of things to be worried about here. Jueme also will help deal with Oldoa in quite a strong way, but because she has the extra jump, she just kind of traipses across the battlefield, leaving Mont and Oldoa alone in the opposite corner, which is going to be kind of weird for them and is potentially going to be especially bad for Bradley, because this kind of puts him in a place where all three of them are going to be in his face. So it's probably best to run him up the center, hoping he can get around and regroup with the rest of his party, since he has gotten even more stranded than usual because because of Jueme having a little extra jump. This is one of those maps where having one extra jump can be a game changer in terms of how your starting positions can really work out. A lot of times movement can be like that. Usually it's not jump, but on a map like this, just having that little bit of extra jump can be a real game changer, at least in terms of what's possible for you to start out doing, and Jueme has already demonstrated that for us here. And because our team is more set up to counter what more usually happens, although again, you could argue that I should put Mont on the outside and have him run into the tank instead of running out to the tank and having the tank move up the extreme side. This shows how kind of thinking differently can give you a means to deal with things in ways that, people would put things together very thoughtfully and very well, and then you just do something that is counterintuitive and punish them for being thoughtful and assuming you'd be perfectly rational. But this is going to be a lot easier to cope with in manual because I have so much control of what I'm doing. Bradley would have already walked into his death by now in auto, so I'm glad we're not doing that. I should probably... Let's see. That's not super relevant for him in this matchup, but now Elda has a chance to silence. Let's get our courage up. Or actually, we've already got courage up, so let's go ahead and break everyone's attacking power, remove some AP, some auto restore. I think we did have auto restore on Elda, so that did affect someone in a pretty impactful way. And also, since this is a fully physical attacking team, this is gonna hurt their chances across the board as well. This is an ability that was really made to mess with teams like this. Mont's finally getting in range, relatively close for damage, but not quite there. So we're going to go ahead and use Oldoa's TMR on him for Ashen Blessing. This is going to give him the ability to turn down their defense penetration while also turning up his defense and ability to resist elemental chains, which this team is incredibly good at. Very good chainers with the exception of Jueme. So that's going to be really helpful for him, and if he can apply that defense penetration reduction, then it should help really reduce or handicap the amounts of damage that we're going to see from the water side of the fight. As you can see, they're also pretty resilient against us, and they're really, now that they've broken through Bradley's multi-hit barrier, they're doing pretty significant damage to him as well. This skill is going to put that last bit of damage in there to trigger his courage, which is going to get him attacking and retaliating with us. It seems like he could have been a little bit later, maybe past Ferris, but we did get that back up. So let's see what we can do with Oldoa here. I'm going to have to move a little bit closer if I want to use the LB. And even though it looks like maybe from this angle you could hit Elda, he's about a space too far away for that to work. It just doesn't necessarily look like it from the angle we're viewing the map. So Mont is going to have to do things here in order to keep us doing well and keep Bradley safe. So let's see how Mont's LB holds up to Jueme and holds up to a really strong versus physical resist unit. Also bringing a lot of effects here. They can't break our barriers and they have reduced defense penetration as well. So We're even set up to tank even better now, but it's kind of irrelevant to Bradley because any one damage would take him out. But we have started some chains for him, and he has the ability to chain with all of those at once. So bam, that 1 HP really came back to bite them in the ass. But there is a little bit more healing here because I haven't broken their healing, so they're trying to get back in this, but they're definitely doing pretty bad in comparison. This is a good tempo changing move, this LB here. It's going to lower CT for Oldoa, also a Dispel, and it's going to raise CT for Ferris, helping her to get back into the fight sooner. But it looks like at least 2 of my characters are going to be able to attack before her still. And also, Elda here has silenced most of my team. This is really bad for Oldoa, and I didn't expect the silence to be impactful here, but this is just a really bad thing for Oldoa. Luckily, it doesn't phase King Mont, and he's able to keep chugging through their team. And there's just so many bad things happening on the left side of this team that everyone's ignoring poor King Bradley and his 1 HP over here on the side, much to their chagrin. He's still not doing a lot of damage, but we're setting up chain here, so hopefully we can capitalize on that with Mont's turn right before Ferris gets another shot at things, and that should be enough to take her out. If she doesn't have re-raise or courage, it should be pretty easy with a chain to do overwhelming damage here. And there we go. That is another one under the belt. And that one wasn't even necessarily all that close. Like, we did really, really good. And there were a number of things that were kind of unlikely to happen, like Elda silencing the 1 mage on my team, that did still happen. So I think that would still be an interesting match and well-balanced match in non-manual, like full autoplay. So next we're going to look at full wind, and this should be probably the hardest matchup yet. This is going to be the pseudo Lancer wind team, so we'll see how that goes. I'm going to put Bradley on the inside here. I'm going to want to group my units up. He definitely can't 2v1 wind, so I'm going to want him on the inner track here. Also, I kind of saw that coming, but their Lancer having high jump and being on the far side of that was easily able to clear it and group up with the rest of his team. So this is another one of these fights where I'm going to need to move my units to the center of the map, and I'm going to have to aggressively position Bradley that way as well, even though I think he's a little bit safer on the outside. Now, I did remember that I do have an elemental buff here that Oldoa can apply and add to the beginning of her buff rotation. So this is going to give Mont and herself specifically a lot of help in dealing with some of the first hits that we're going to endure. And that should help get us, into a point in the fight where we can kind of grind in and win. If I moved forward that fast, this team has good movement and good range. I would need courage one way or the other, but it's entirely possible they can still hit me from here. And with this being a more physical team, I'm still probably going to want to work in the Veritas of the Wind TMR activation. And I'm going to want to do it before they start doing damage. I think I might be able to wait one more turn with Bradley, but one of these guys might be able to get in range with him. Hopefully, because I have courage up already, this won't stop me from being able to execute my plan with him, and it looks like that's not going to be a problem. But it does also mean that I'm definitely doing damage last, but also that I'm going to be I'm in range of all 3 of them at the moment, so this is going to be difficult even with that buff, but at least they didn't get in range before, because it feels really bad to use a buff when someone's in range to damage you already. You should be responding to that with damage of your own, usually. That's one thing that auto generally gets right, but there are a lot of situations where you want to buff or reapply buffs in the middle of combat that are actually beneficial and noteworthy. And wisdom is the judgment to know when those times are occurring. I'm going to go with the more general buff. There's not really any re-raise here to counter. There's not really any CT shenanigans here to counter. So I don't have to worry as much about some of that stuff. Once again, it looks like Mont's not really in the range to do all that much. I don't mind hitting one unit with his LB. I mean, it's very powerful. I wish I could hit 2 units with it more often. But it is a powerful attack, and getting that follow-up hit in there sooner, getting that active earlier is pretty helpful. I might be able to get a couple of these guys in range for a calculated rend, but I don't think I'm in range to LB. I don't know. Let's see. He's not the most evasive character, but let's see what this evasion up does. I don't think that's gonna be anything, honestly. Like, Glaciella is naturally very accurate, as she's showing here. Like, having no trouble hitting him, even with that evasion. I mean, that's not what this team is built for. There's definitely Bradley teams where Bradley can evade at some times, but it's gonna be really hard to do that against Glaciella, especially. Might be able to dodge Dario, but Dario's not going to worry about him. Instead, he's going to get himself in range of Oldoa and in range of Mont, who probably still has that elemental buff to his wind resistance. Okay, that did a lot. Applied a lot of extra effects. It also silenced Dario, most importantly here. So Dario is now basically useless for 3 turns, and I can add another layer of frustration to this, trying to confuse their Veritas of the Winds as well, but also reducing the damage output for these characters. I instead confused Dario, which is kind of redundant and not super helpful with silence, but I could not resist the opportunity to screw up 2 of their characters instead of just 1. This is giving Mont the opportunity to get in range. Ooh, Glacia's still taking a lot of damage really well, but she's got a barrier up that I don't think we're dealing with here. So this damage should increase with time, and these follow-up skills should keep helping chip that away. Bradley is in range for damage, but he's not doing much either. Even with Odin isn't necessarily a great way to do damage, but the field effect should be helpful. It's going to be a little hard to line up this LB, but maybe if we just take out Veritas of the Winds, just go ahead and get him squared away and removed from the map, then we'll be able to push some incremental advantage. Now it's a 3v1, and we're mostly healed. One of their units is basically useless, and Glaciella could still ruin this for most of the rest of us. I don't necessarily see a way that anyone is going to remove Oldoa from the board in the time limit, so worst case scenario, I think this match goes to time with Oldoa still on the board, and hopefully with a lot of HP. I might have to start cheesing ways to get her HP a little bit higher closer to the end, because a tie is going to be determined by who has the most HP, but we're still over 20 turns away from that yet. It is important to note that KO'd units do take up, I think, 3 turns after passing away, at least until they become a crystal, so those are going to eat up those actions left as well. It's always something people don't expect necessarily. Still not doing a lot of damage. Probably should have used a chaining move here, but this seemed good, and it gave me a CT up buff to help me get in and do more damage sooner again. And it looks like I might be able to do damage to her before she gets her next turn. Removed confusion from Dario, which is, again, irrelevant because he is silenced. It's not like he's going to do anything, even though he is no longer confused. He still can't talk or cast spells. Having a little trouble lining up the LB from there. Let's see what we can do from here. friendly fire, don't want that. So maybe, even though it's not doing a lot of damage to him, the easiest thing that I can get in range is Dario. So we'll go ahead and do that. This is going to increase the chances that Oldoa is able to survive until the very end of this match by giving her particularly pierce resistance. She doesn't have a lot of that naturally, so this is going to really beef that up. And that's going to help just in case, say, Glaciella wipes two of my units off the field here. Don't think she's going to do it, but it is possible. And as you can see, we're still not doing a ton of damage to her yet. So it's, like the chances of her going nuclear just keep ticking the longer we can't remove her from the field. And with my DPS units being exclusively Earth here, that's pretty tough. She's quite the brawler. But I'm going to move Bradley behind her so that's harder for her to hit us with AoE skills. She'll have to kind of pick a unit to deal with. Okay, she picked Bradley. He's gone. It's now a 2v2. The health is pretty similar amongst 3 out of 4 units, Oldoa here being the notable exception, having a lot of HP left. So let's see what I can do. It looks like I might have to maybe buff for myself. I can't get in range of Oldoa though, so maybe I'll do something like this. Dario will be recovering from silence shortly, so he will become a threat again, but he's just the tank. I'm not really worried about his damage or anything. The thing I really want to be able to resist is, I really want to be able to hold out against this Glaciella for this last 13 actions, and giving my Mont increased defense against her, and the ability to, defense piercing rate down doesn't do anything against this guy. But if and when Glaciella gets in range, it's going to be really helpful against her and trying to ensure that she doesn't run away with this match. And there, again, like a little bit more damage, and she might have been able to do a lot more here. But once again, I'm running into AP troubles. This is a problem that Mont can run into in longer matches. He has a good bit of AP regeneration and acquired AP up that helps him while that's available, but he is very AP greedy and he will need more and more, and he will run out before many other units will. So having additional AP restore on him for longer fights is pretty important, and also this shows you how impactful it can be nullifying AP restore for him early in the fight and forcing him to maybe rely on turn 4 or 5 efforts to buff his AP and kind of leave him a lot more useless in the early match and kind of give you more opportunities to take him out before he becomes a threat again. But we've pretty much closed this fight out. Similar HP again between the 3 units are not Oldoa. Oldoa is disabled though, so that's really bad for her. That's kind of like paying me back for the silence, but hey, we still won that one, even though it was by going to time, which doesn't feel great, and also makes me feel like even the Oldoa version of this team is going to have some serious issues with win, but then it can be done. So let's look at things from a different perspective. Let's see how a strike team does here. Although it does have some resistance to strike naturally, I'm not using Ashen Mont's TMR, which would give a character even more strike resistance potentially. I'm not really speccing in for strike resistance across the party, but do have some natural resistances here. That being said, this is a really strong team, and while a lot of my units deal with their best unit being Alaya the Alabaster, this is by no means a shoe-in. But you've seen my opening strategies a number of times, so I'm going to take a quick break here and come back in a moment to pick up a little bit later in the fight. In the meantime, remember to like, subscribe, and just go ahead and open that link in the description in another page of your web browser or something. Or, on your phone, whatever you're doing, however you're watching this. Just you can check it out later. If I remember correctly, it should be another one of those matches where I could not buff my AP, but the other team could. No, wait, that's just regen from his LB. Anyways, as you can see, both Bradley and King Mont are taking this pretty poorly. And Bradley in particular is taking it lying down. That means that the opposing team here is the first KO, and I'm going to be fighting an uphill battle. As you can see, Mont can't use most of his powerful skills at this point, and I think I'm going to have to buddy buff and regroup to try to win this. Maybe the slight chance to charm could be what I need to turn things around. It's not a likely scenario, but it couldn't hurt to try. It really could win this game for me. Okay, even up to a 2v2. I'd say they still have the upper hand, and that HP absorb, well-timed HP absorb, really makes me think they might remain having the upper hand, but we are bringing it back. Wait, never mind. Oh my gosh, look at the massive amount of damage that skill does. Ladies and gentlemen, the boxes of all kinds, the momentum has swung back momentously into my favor, and Oldoa is jubilantly plotting her options for destroying the battlefield. Unfortunately, I think one of them might be able to move before this lands, but we'll see where they go. Mont once again needs AP, so I'm going to give him some much needed AP restore. They don't have a second cast for that AP nullifier, so there's not any counterplay for them for this anymore, really. And since we've gotten into that part of the game, this should help us set ourselves up, survive. Well, actually, this is a pretty... I mean, he has a lot... They both have a lot of debuff weakening, actually. So that might not be the biggest deal, even that Esper, but the field effects could be pretty impactful from it. Also, that Courage is only going to work if the LB has expired. The LB effect has expired, so no follow-up damage. And we did not get the KO on Alaya there, but it does look like we silenced them both nevertheless, for what good that does us. So let's finish this off with Chaotic Class and Dark Golem. Oh yeah, Courage. He has Courage too, right. Well, we'll see what happens. We got 12 moves to win this. He has 1 HP. I think we have this one pretty good. Let's see how much I do just tapping him. Ooh, over 2k. Nice. And this is going to be, I think, our final match of the day. This is going to be the full Pierce team, as typified here by Veritas of the Winds. Again, Veritas of the Winds is a significant unit. If like the last 2 or 3 matches didn't show you that his TMR is really helpful in dealing with especially Earth-based King Mont teams, but also a lot of other teams that rely on AP restore baked into their kit, none more so than Mont, then that TMR can be a real game changer, especially against more physical teams or just physical teams in general. It's a really helpful buff for fighting against the almost ever-present physical meta. So really good, highly recommend it, but also just the way that you can reincarnate him so incredibly quickly, like all of the other Veritas. In some ways, if it weren't for the quick start of them just giving us a ton of medals for him for completing story, I wish there was some equivalent of this for the other Veritas. He's actually one of the slower ones to build because of how slowly they release new updates to the Legendary Reliquaries content. Comparatively, there are daily and weekly forms and ways of getting medals for the other two. And while it's going to take them a long time to get to 120, once you break them into 140, you can expect for units like Veritas of the Earth or Veritas of the Waters to be reincarnating them 30 times a week for free with only minimal effort. So, I mean, like, the literal bare minimum for Arena is that you be able to reincarnate Folka effectively 6 times. And I say effectively again because it's 6 times as powerful, so it's just going to be 1 time for those 20 weekly medals for participating. Just a bare participation trophy kind of award level, 21 medals total for that week. But it's also relatively easy to get a total of 95 medals a week by doing your 5 fights a day, and that's most likely going to land you between the top 1,000 and 5,000. So that's 95 medals a week easy for her. And again, like I said, once you get her into like 120 and 140, those 95 medals are effectively going to be 5 reincarnations, and those 5 reincarnations are going to carry with them a total of 90 stars, the equivalent of 30 reincarnations for another character. So they're going to build up rather quickly, and I think that gives them a special place in any of the teams that fit them. This is going to be a big part of the backbone of Pierce, and also it's a really strong asset for Wind as well. But all that being said, I've talked through the opening buff pattern. We're getting in range for damage, so let's see what happens. It actually might have been smarter to go for the big debuff at this point with him and maybe leave him back, but I'm going to need to get in range and start doing some damage. Oldoa is not going to be able to deal with the pierce damage nearly as well as she can do with most things, and she's going to have, even though she's going to have pretty good resistances to the wind stuff, so she has an okay matchup with Veritas of the Winds, but these other two might be a little bit of trouble for her. Of course, it looks like they're getting really preoccupied with absolutely bodying my Bradley, and yep, no, he's down. I've lost my first unit already. And, you know, this kind of demonstrates something I was talking about, like, elemental teams are okay, but elemental teams don't reach the highest level of possible power in a lot of cases without certain odds being stacked in their favor in the way that they are kind of uniquely for water and in some cases earth right now. But outside of that, the best teams, the most viable teams, are generally going to follow the new VC synergies and job-based alignment synergies. That being said, even though we have lost a unit and barely done any damage to them despite having used one of our limit bursts, let's keep hopes alive. Let's go ahead and get a lot of physical shielding on this Mont here, and just hope we can weather through, draw them in close enough to really start debuffing, and then wail in with our unit attacks. Now, for each of them, this is only going to allow them to deal with 2 threats at a time, and there are 3, so we look like we stand to get overwhelmed. Already healed for Oldoa. I don't think we've seen Mont go off yet, though. It's already starting to take some really bad neutral pierce damage. We're going to have to raise our elevation to be able to hit Elda, but a little bit lower than that. Okay, well, we'll hit these two. So this is good damage. It's follow-up. It activates our follow-up damage, which is important for us. Removing re-raise because of Oldoa's aura, so that's really going to help against Elda. But also, it's going to reduce that unit attack resistance, and oh god, if Oldoa doesn't remain paralyzed for the next 3 turns, that's going to allow her to boost her damage as well. Oh damn, disruption effect, that's bad. Lost my haste, but we're hanging in there. I mean, by we, I mean surprisingly the Ashen King. You can do damage to both of them, although it looks like it won't make it all the way through Jaden's. Oh, we didn't beat Jaden's 10,000 HP barrier, but we did silence him, so that's a big deal there. Wow. So he's out of the game for 3 turns. That's a big deal there. Holy crap. King Mont be like that. Okay. It's now a 3v1, which is really technically more of a 2v1. Jaden is a formality at the moment, but if he can survive 3 turns, he can really continue to mess with this. Veritas of the Winds is way out of the scenario, and he is the one with the best matchup here. So let's see if we can deal with these two before he gets in range. We still can't break through his barrier. Okay, that's going to do it. There we go. That's also going to deal with some self-healing strategies, potentially. It is now a 2v1, which is kind of a 1v1. But I'm not sure if Ashen Mont will get through this fast enough to really... oh yes, there's the threshold heal, finally. Wow, he's so much further from being defeated than you possibly thought. So let's go ahead and get that AP restore back up and some of those other effects going for us. Ooh, Ultras. Now, I don't often remove some of the abilities I probably should. Well, actually, Ultras works fair enough with Elda. I mean, I guess in terms of effects, there's a lot of ways you could go within a multi-elemental team. Okay, hit both of them here. Now that we've gotten through Jaden's barrier, he is really taking damage, and boom. Yeah, those 7,500 HP or 10,000 HP barriers can be really misleading in the way that they have you look at your damage, because there's kind of a health bar that you're working on that you can't see. But he was taking pretty decent damage from his attacks, it seems. And now we're 1v1ing the Veritas of the Winds and winning that 1v1 so far. We may not have survived if that had played out further, but we definitely had the most HP as that match ended. And that's how you win in matches like that. But again, like I said at the very beginning in kind of the qualifications, if it is that drawn out, then it's very much likely that I only won that because I was playing in manual, and therefore it probably wouldn't be a great auto matchup, which is how a lot of the PvP in this game is played. So that is worth noting. But thank you all so much for tuning in today. I hope you liked this episode. Be sure to engage in chat. Go down into the comments, leave me a comment, tell me who your favorite team was or who you're planning to use with Ashen Mont, or also, alternately, tell me your strategies for beating Ashen Mont. What do you think is going to be important versus him? Who do you think key units are going to be versus him? And who will gain relevance in the meta purely because of how well they counter Ashen Mont? Or maybe not purely, but gain current relevance, a bump in relevance purely because of that, because I think that could work for a number of characters. And I think that some of the ones that you see on the screen, I know, although it's pretty new, but she's had some issues with her rollout, and I think that this kind of solves some of them. She definitely makes a strong partner for Ashen Mont, and so far she's proven just to be a really strong partner and an unselfish partner, as you would imagine from Oldoa, with so many of the newer units. She just works on so many of those teams. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up being one of the more used characters in recent history, other than maybe some of the most hyped units, just because she works with so many different team compositions. You can kind of just plug her and play her in so many scenarios and not really get punished for it. So I think we'll definitely be seeing more of Oldoa, and that her time is still kind of yet to come. But I think this is a first peek at that power, but also definitely a look at how strong Ashen Mont is going to be against a lot of the teams that you might find interesting and relevant. But also, tell me how your teams match up. Do you play Katana? Do you play Greatsword or anything like that? Tell me how those teams are faring against Ashen Mont and who you think the key units are there. But above all else, like and subscribe. That's how the channel grows. That helps me reach more people. That helps me reach you more often. And all the engagement helps. Also, check out that link in the description. That's going to lead you to other forms of Jackie Fox content talking about more serious life things. Just society and culture on other channels, but also just other forms of Jackie Fox content, including books. I'd really appreciate it if you picked up one of my books this year and helped me, in doing so, make a case to a publishing company that I should be on their roster instead of working with Amazon. That would definitely help and brighten my year, so be sure to do that if you can afford it. Link for that also is going to be in the description, so check that out. It's your one-stop shop for all the Jackie Fox content you can find all over the internet. And with all of that being said, see you in the next one.